In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
That's right, I know. And then, like, every time I see one, I always find that I start, like, counting them. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I count them while I'm just sitting there, waiting. I know, it's the most bizarre thing. But you're so right. I'm gonna have to tell Jack when he gets here.
Hey, what do you count? He's
oh, hey,
trust
Jack.
me, he counts them all the time, and he always comes up with 2. I don't know why he keeps looking for more down there. There's only 2. Like, it's just like, get used to it.
That's not what we were talking about. I was just catching up with Neil. You know, Neil, the guy who sits in the front window and he jots down the bumper sticker ideas, and then So I was telling Neil that I have noticed that there is a positive correlation between bad drivers and the amount of bumper stickers that they have on their vehicle.
Oh, okay. And so explain this mathematical algorithm that you've uncovered on the roadways.
I don't know if it's that fancy, but really what it is it's like if you notice that there's somebody who has an obscene amount of bumper stickers, and usually there's like either somebody has 1 or they have 15. Like there's not like somebody who has like 3. Usually it's like you go from like 2 to 15 really fast. It's kind of like
usually.
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody who's addicted to hard drugs. Like, there's no in between. There's not a weekend warrior. It's just like you're either
they're
doing
not
it.
addicted to just one of them.
Yeah,
they're addicted to all of them.
They're addicted to all of them. And so what I've noticed is it's like people who are really bad drivers usually have at least 6 different bumper stickers on the back of their vehicle, and a lot of them have content that is referring to how poorly other people drive. So I'm talking about the ones where it's like, if you can read this, you're following too closely, or, right. if you're going to ride my ass, at least you could do is pull my hair, that kind of stuff. And
sure, which is no problem, by the way. Oh my God, pull your fucking hair. You're not giving me a chance. Get out of the car.
I saw that one the other day. It was hilarious. Yeah. But anyway, and then you know what Neil said? He said, those are my best customers.
I'm sure they are. Yeah, I'm sure they are. Well, and I think you should this is probably something to take note of before you flip another driver off, or the ones that basically would road rage you have there's that standard like AK assault rifle sticker that They must have passed out a bunch of those some years ago to the right people, or the people. They maybe not the right people for that group, but because they all seem to have the same one. And then I see this grenade that's very similarly constructed. The art is very much the same. And it's on the back windows. Very often it's a truck. Very often it's a jacked up truck that's had way too much money spent on its lift kit and its tires. But I don't want to go too far with my, sweeping generalization of who may or may not be possessing these, because it's possible you could see them on a Tesla. I haven't yet, but I always love, the one exception to the rule, the AK that's on a Tesla. But just, word of advice, those are the people probably not to piss off, just because they likely have those things in their cars. I also feel like that's a total tip-off to the cops, too. It's just like, hey, if you want to get a bust for illegal possession of firearms, this is the vehicle. You're literally pointing yourself out. It's like sticking a sticker on the back window that says, I have cocaine, or it's a picture of a little baggie or a little
just a giant marijuana leaf.
Like, hey, cops is over here. I'm a supporter of, like, it's kind of insane and silly. But yeah, because bumper stickers seems to me like bumper stickers have gone like down. Like that's an area where they finally ran out of ideas, or at least it's an area that shows the nadir.
Well, don't tell Neil that, because that's his
society.
That's his trade.
I know that's what he does. I've never wanted to, I've always wanted to enter into a philosophical discussion about this with him, since he's a bumper sticker expert. He literally does it for a living. But
he's a man of few words.
To me, it seems like, well, first of all, when you talk bumper stickers, to me, if a bumper sticker needs to be brief, it's kind of like a good headline. It can't go on for a while because people just A, aren't going to read it, and B, some can't, which is totally tragic. But then also, when you're moving down the road, that's, because some people will see these in parked circumstances, but let's face it, most of us are going to see more vehicles moving down the road.
Right.
Because that's where all the vehicles are.
It's like a protest sign. You only really have so much bandwidth.
Right. We've discussed this in that sense before. A good protest sign is akin to a good bumper sticker because it needs to be brief. It needs to be, thought provoking. And, you need to get in and out because I'm only on your ass riding you at 78 miles an hour
while
on
pulling
the
your
interstate
hair
for just a few seconds. Yeah. Before I sweep by you on the left, hoping that your window's down so I can pull the braid you have sticking out the window, but so that your wishes can come true. But yeah, some of them seem to go on for a long time. Some of them seem to be extremely long-winded. And then, like I said, then there's just the pictorial displays, just the ones that are trying to summarize, this is the person who owns this car and what I'm all about in like a picture, because after all, words are probably not their best instruments anyway.
So they use symbols.
Yeah, I don't like to put words on things. Reading's too hard, and so just stick the AK back there. They'll know what you mean. So
yeah,
and you do. You kind of get it. It's like, yeah, all right, I get you.
Anytime I see the grenade, or anytime I see any kind of weapon displayed on a window sticker, I always just think condition unknown.
Yeah, that's right. That's your go-to. That's our band, Condition Unknown.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we wish him the best with writing his bumper stickers. So before I forget, seems like there's been a lot of, like, I don't know, editing, dare I say, in hindsight. There's been a lot of hindsight thought going on my end about some of these previous episodes of Existence Brewing, our get-togethers here, that I've been thinking about. And I was thinking about the housing. Remember we talked about affordable housing? That's been a while ago, not that long ago, but a while ago. And I got on a soapbox and said, my theory on affordable housing, because everybody's fucking talking about how we need more houses. And it's like, no, my slant basically was that doesn't work, because affordable houses are designed, like everything else in this world, to accrue in value. And so very quickly they become unaffordable immediately or rapidly. And so it doesn't make any sense. It's counterintuitive. So, and I like that and I'll stick with that. But, I was thinking the other day in one of my more misanthropic states that I got an even better solution for you to affordable housing. We don't need more housing. We need fewer people. So I just wanted to go back and underscore that point. It's like, yeah, Hansen missed that one. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, rather than worrying about how many houses we do or don't have and the rate at which they're going up or down, which that rarely happens unless you have a mass exodus from a city like Detroit where nobody wants to live now, you just get rid of the people. Just how about fewer people? And this comes up often because you get to talking about people's children and this many 5 children that this person has, or 7 or whatever. And then you think about all the resources that they're going to consume. And, and again, that's another one of those tough areas for Jack in the Existence Brewing pot, if you will, in the brew that is the show, because so much of the show, I suppose, really is the mental state that you and I both exist in consistently every day in perpetuity. And that's a frustrating one for me, because if we lived in a world where we were creating an opportunity for, souls to be here and to have a fantastic experience. I mean, I know that there's still learning that needs to be done conceivably, but we're responsible for what we construct here both individually and collectively. And if we were doing better with that, it's kind of like I've always said about abortion. I mean, we live in a world where, these people who are anti-abortion, I just think, well, give us a world where people want to bring children into, and you wouldn't have a problem anymore. First of all, the baby shouldn't be the product of rape or incest. I mean, let's take that off the table. So the argument's completely removed because we're not hurting each other anymore. And then secondarily, even just for accidental pregnancies that were conceived in a moment of passion that was for a few flickering seconds enjoyable, but yet still just external nonetheless, now I don't want to keep the kid. And, the first thought I think in a lot of these people's minds is this is a hard place to be. I don't want to put another human being through that for what comes down to, in practical terms, is one reason or another. And so we don't have a world where we want to put people in it. Some people are putting way too many in it, if you ask me, for all the wrong reasons or just because. But then a lot of very thoughtful people, these are the people that are faced with those hard choices. And we don't have a world that babies are safe in, that they're going to be raised to a point when then they're adolescents or adults where they're going to have chances and opportunities and happy experiences and be treated equally and fairly. And yes, I know you have to bring people into the world to make those changes occur, but there's also, I think, a threshold to that. So there's a whole argument that I go through constantly that is one of millions that I have seemingly as this person, this Jack Hansen person, they're very hard because they're very polar. They're extremely polarized. One side is like, no, I'm all for the creation of another soul, a vessel for it. Let's get him down here. Let's get him doing something. Experience is phenomenal. It's awesome. It's a miracle. It's nothing short. And let's go. Let's do this. And then the other side is, holy shit, wait a second. Before we do that, let's talk about these million things that we might want to throw out there, because that's why I've never had children, I think, is because I don't know that I wouldn't just die immediately being overwhelmed from the responsibility that I would feel. Because I know that it's its own soul, it's its own energy, it's its own spark, and it has its own journey to fulfill, especially once it gets to what we would call legal, age, to adulthood. You have to let go. Parents have to let go and realize, well, it's the kid's own journey. And if they want to do this and do that, even though we can see it coming, we just have to be there to support them when the fall comes. You can't convince them until, because life is a heuristic exercise. You have to learn as you go in so many ways. You can't just know. Some of us know coming in, but that's karma. That's baggage that we bring in. That's good stuff. Anyway, it's one of those tough, moments for Jack where there's conflict. But in thinking about the housing thing, like I said, in a more misanthropic musing, it was just like, well, get rid of all the fucking people. Then we don't have the problem. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case, some savvy listeners went, gosh, he really missed the mark on that one. Just get rid of the people, the hell with the houses. And yeah, it's true. So anyway,
that's one of the beautiful things about Jack is he's like one part philosopher, one part George Carlin, and I don't know what the other part would be, but yeah, no, I like how you you just kind of tie a bow on that really, really deep, heavy topic by just saying, kill all the people. But no, I think
I didn't say. Well, hold on. I didn't say kill them. I just said fewer of them. Just don't bring them into the world. Let's not get me in more trouble than I'm already.
No, I understand.
Kim Kardashian as a piñata.
No, I understand. Or was it Chloe? But no, I think that one of the things that we, and I think one of the reasons why you probably like my company sometimes, if not all the time, is my analogies. I was
fishing.
I was going back to analogies, right? And affordable housing, I think you have to first define what is housing. Okay.
And affordable, too.
And affordable, And so in many ways, giving everyone what somebody else views as affordable housing is kind of like taking a Ferrari and making it an automatic transmission. I mean, in many ways, people who, like you just said, if you had children, you wouldn't maybe even know what to do with yourself. And there's probably a lot of people who have children, or even people who have a lot of children that don't know what to do with themselves. And I think that in similar ways, it's like, well, just because it's good for somebody doesn't mean it's good for everyone. And I think that there are ways that housing and our concept of housing can really be kind of maybe modified, because I really don't believe that everyone has the same faculties to be able to, do well for themselves in the same environment that somebody who is maybe a lawmaker or a politician can go, oh yes, everybody needs to have this because this is what I had and this is what is good for you. And I think that in some cases, there are people in this world who have chosen a path to be homeless and not, or home free, as somebody once explained it to me. And so hence they're homeless. But they wouldn't know what to do with a home if they had one. And they have no intention or any wanting to have one. And so I think that, to some degree, it's like trying to say, oh, yes, well, no, this is what you need to do and this is how you need to do it. And yeah, it's a tough thing. And I think you could say the same thing about a lot of other social issues.
Yeah, nothing's ever that easy, although I think sometimes it's a lot easier than we make it. Backing up to your analytics of moi, first of all, why was I picturing like the scene in Superman 3 where Robert Vaughn tells Richard Pryor to manufacture kryptonite? Well, he doesn't tell him to do that, but he says to get rid of Superman. And so he manufactures kryptonite in the laboratories of whatever this company Robert Vaughn owns, that literally there's nothing they don't do. They sell coffee, they make office furniture, they make giant computers that control the world and, like launch nuclear weapons, and they can just make kryptonite. But there was one unknown element within it when he was trying to put it together. And so that's when he looks at his cigarette pack and puts tar in, and that's what creates the bizarro Superman that comes, and they have that. And then what's weird about that scene where the like bizarro Superman fights the just plain Jane, regular everyday Superman is like, I used that analogy to quit smoking in my life and won, because I was just like, there's no fucking way Bizarro Superman is tearing me down.
Seriously.
That's exactly how in my mind I played that off. Yeah, so that's what's kind of interesting, because if you watch that scene, if you know that movie, and it's a total cheese fest, but it's a classic. I mean, come on, it's got Pryor, and I love Robert Vaughn.
The fact that Richard Pryor was even in a Superman movie is just mind-boggling to me.
I know. And here's the thing. The people from his estate and all of those that are like in the minority comedy block and everything say that that movie was horrible. And all the movies he starred in at that time were horrible because the studio basically, he was a real artist who had a lot, I won't say potential. He had a lot more to say, but the studios in Hollywood just wouldn't let him. And so I get that. I mean, as much as I can, not sharing in being that same minority, I really feel like as a thinking person and as maybe a little bit of a comic myself, I get that. I'd like to think I get that. But it's also kind of like, well, let's just appreciate what we have. So anyway, that movie goes back in my childhood, and I digress by just saying that that's what came to mind when you were talking about, the other part is unknown. I just think, yeah, that's kind of me. I'm kind of like kryptonite for so many things, because there's that unknown element. And if you don't choose right, you're going to get Bizarro Jack, and he's going to fight himself again in the junkyard. But, we went over this when we talked about the affordable housing thing. You talked about defining housing, and I said immediately you have to define affordable too, because remember, all the people passing all of the laws that are related to all of this stuff and building all of those houses can afford them. And so hence one of the major problems that we have when you're so out of touch, and again, I don't like to talk about what's his name, the guy that's the president now. I forget his name so often, but he talked. I remember when one of his rants one time was something about, I know what it's like. I know what it's like. I had to borrow $1 million from my father one time. It's just like, to complete a business deal. And you're just kind of going, God, look, setting everything else aside that could be talked about, regardless of your politics, your persuasions, one way or another, that's not something most people like. You're completely out of touch. No one has a father that has $1 million laying around to borrow. I mean, yeah, there are people that do, but they're very few, sir. Very, very few. And you're serving a nation, a world of people in so many ways that's not an alternative for them. I mean, so the disconnect is startling. And I have watched that process in a politician before from a reporter's perspective. I mean, without using names, there is a representative, a U.S. representative within the state that we live in who was elected to their first term when I was working as a roving reporter. Let's say I was out shooting wildfires and car wrecks with videos, and I was doing these political things, and I was more of a videographer than anything. And so it was a short time when I was doing that. I met this person, and they were approachable. They were friendly. They seemed to be extremely, egalitarian is a pretty strong word because you don't know what their leanings are as far as that's concerned. But they just seemed to be really kind of a commoner. They were so excited to have been elected, and you could just tell that the glee for being able to represent the people was unending at that point. If you talk to them now, again, you ask, what'd you do with the real this person? Because they are a reptile. They are a bloviating windbag politician, dead in the eyes and just silver in the tongue. There is nothing of any substance there. Any passion is artificially constructed, and it's aimed or angled at a party or an ideology that isn't real. It's not a child that's standing there with their mom that's come to your rally that you're so concerned with. That's all gone. The person has turned into a vapid shell of what they used to be. And I seriously wonder if sometimes they don't line them up and there isn't that reptile shit. People laugh like, yeah. You got to start wondering if it's not fucking just 100% true sometimes, because we go through enough of these experiences. Sometimes, the sublime and the ridiculous eventually just become the out and out truth, no matter how weird it is to admit. But anyway, I've seen that in action. So that's another part of the issue, is the affordable tag sources than the rest of us do. And it's a too big of a divide, and it's not okay. And then real quickly, I'm also, when you're talking about this, I'm thinking of Reggie White. Do you remember the Minister of Defense, Reggie White, the football player, the defensive end? He used to play for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers, and he was an ordained minister. I believe he passed away, but he was actually an ordained minister. And this was before the woke thing really hatched. So it was in the 20-aughts or early 2000s sometime, I want to say. And he gave that, I don't know whether it was a commencement speech or a commencement address. I think it was something smaller than that. He was giving, though, a little dissertation to a group of people that were large enough for cameras to be there and rolling. And he got off on this racial bent, which he, of course, was and probably still is allowed to do because he is a minority himself, or was. But he started talking about how, look at Mexicans, for example. No wonder they're so interested in family. There's 12 to 13 of them in one house, But the thing is that, and everybody, oh gosh, you're not supposed to say that. Why? He's right. He's pointing out a fact. We do have an entire culture that is very used to sharing a household. And that's also something that used to exist in, for lack of a more finite term, American culture with white people, let's face it, who are more well-fed and more opportunistic and more well-to-do and all that, demographically speaking. Well, we got too many people that are just him and hers couples with Fifi the dog living in a 30,000 square foot fucking mansion. That's one of your problems, is that the culture has changed, because it used to be that generations of families would stay under the same roof, or you'd build onto the house when the family got large enough. There was really that family aspect. And now that's not nearly as popular of a trend. Kids, no matter how well they've been raised, no matter what kind of a sterling spoon they've had shoved in their mouth from birth, they want out. They want to get away from that and go out into the world and have their own house and their own this. And the thing is that on both sides of that equation, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it creates a major backlog when everybody that's a twosome or that's just raising a couple of kids wants to have their own house. And then suddenly 18 years down the road, each of those two children wants to go and have their own house too. That's a big, big draw on the resources in the system. And so we have to be able to establish and be honest about some of the fundamentals that are at play here too. It used to be you died at home. Grandma and grandpa lived at home with the rest of the family until they died at home from diphtheria or whatever the fuck it is, getting, I got stung by a porcupine, and then it gets an infection, and then that's it. That doesn't happen anymore, because now what do we do with mom and dad when they aren't able to be at home anymore? We jam them into a facility that's completely supplemented by federal, state, all this funding. They become a number in a system. We forget about them. Let's be honest. I mean, it happened to my mother, and although I visited as often as I could, I probably could have visited twice as often as I did. And it's wrong in so many ways. It's not okay. And those are all different pots of this argument where we can look for a remedy as well. But they're also they're side effects. They're all symptoms of the same problem, which is, fuck all this. We got to get on with me, I guess, to kind of paraphrase Pink Floyd in my own way. I want my own this, and this. And I don't inherently see anything wrong with that, so don't get me wrong. But it also doesn't play very well to the benefit of everybody else that's involved in the equation. I mean, we've really taken every person for themselves to a whole new echelon, and it's troublesome. And this affordable housing thing, and not everybody gets a house, and a lot of people get jammed in these nursing homes. That's all just, as I said, a side effect. That's all just a symptom of what's going on to create that earlier on.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it when you said that it really comes down to kind of maybe selfishly, how does it impact me? And there's an example that I wanted to bring up. There was a local church who is neighbors in our neighborhood across the street from our house. And they wanted to take what they said was homeless college students, and they wanted to develop a program to where they would put all of these tiny homes in their parking lot, and they would have these little, they were calling them cottages, and they were essentially tiny homes that then would become homes for homeless college students. And I
remember this.
Yeah, and I remember thinking to myself, like, and I got to the point where I even went and met with like the pastor of my own church, one-on-one, because I felt like I was maybe doing something internally that really, kind of getting another opinion on all of this. And I wasn't really sure, like, is this something that like churches are being asked to do now because of the pandemic? Is this something that like, is there a greater movement in our community to try and house, disadvantaged people that whatever it might be? And I think really at the end of the day, this organization was really just trying to maybe chase some grant money that they were able to get their hands on. But the reason I think my, big opposition to it is one, it was not in front of my house, not in my backyard.
It's NIMBY, yeah. NIMBY, as they say.
But then at the same time, I also think that it was like, well, these people have a hard enough time taking care of their own property, let alone another human being. This is the same organization that, doesn't really clean up their leaves in the fall. This is the same organization that, just really kind of has always been just something that never really is like a true, beacon of, wow, that's what a church organization should be in our community. And so I think to me, it was more of like wow, these really people have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And so when I met with the pastor, I actually, of this church that was thinking about putting in the homeless student housing, I said, really, what is your long-term plan with these people? And I think what you're doing is you're going to take them and you're going to put them in a fishbowl, and every time they do something that somebody doesn't feel is right in this neighborhood, the police are going to be here. And, it's just going to be a bad situation for them. It's going to be a bad situation for our neighborhood. And, you guys want to be good neighbors, right?
Yeah. Well, We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I wouldn't doubt just as equally that they were chasing grant money and were trying to cash it in some way, because sadly that's another side effect. That's another symptom of the constructs that we have in society. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they really were trying to help people. And it is unfortunate that they run into as many roadblocks as they do, but it's also understandable why those are there, because some of them make perfect sense. Because NIMBY, it's a real thing. I can sit in my apartment, which is already surrounded by a church on the other side of the street and a business that's on the other side of the fence, and then pretty much just more apartment housing on the other sides of me, and say, while I'm munching on Cheetos, watching some news report on TV, how the neighborhood covenant in Kansas City has said no to a group of homeless college students who need help and they show the students, and here they all are dirty and poor, and it's those masses that the Statue of Liberty is supposed to be welcoming into the nation and give all this fucking this opportunity kit to, and then Kansas City is saying, fuck you, we want you out, because the affluent have spoken yet again, and NIMBY has triumphed. NIMBY, by the way, is Gumby's asshole like uncle. I've decided to. We need to make a figure of him. NIMBY. NIMBY's like, first of all, he's like blue. He's like purple. He's like blue and red. So it's non-political. He's this mixture of.
I was going to say, what color would he be? Yes. Yeah,
that's the problem. If we make him blue, then suddenly he's this, party. If we make him red, then he's this party. So stay away from that. He's purple, or we'll pick an orange, something like that. But anyway, NIMBY needs to be made into an action figure like Gumby. And he can pull Pokey's ponytails while he's riding him from behind, because Gumby never would, the bastard. But so, you can see why I got my Gumby and Pokey taken away when I was a kid too. No more sexual poses, Jack. That's it. So no, I'll go even deeper with you here, and kind of we've got a lot going on here. This is a soup that suddenly has, oh boy, we were at housing, then we're at affordable housing, then we're at like homeless people that need help, and we've got grant money, and we've got rich people, and we've got all this stuff going on.
Yeah, it's like society.
Here's another thing that from a higher viewpoint, again, from kind of that universal kiddo perspective that I love to feel like I can take, because I am that, or at least I can see that. I think all of us maybe are in some degrees, but some of us just, for whatever reason, decided to climb a little further up on the ladder or go further out into space when we were kiddos. I don't know. But just from that 1,000,000-foot level, instead of the several thousand that we've been looking at so far, the people that are arriving here, one of the reasons I think why, yes, we have social upheaval and upset, and there's a lot of discrepancies that have emerged in our system. And I want to crucify capitalism as much as anything in the world, because it doesn't work. But I don't think any system of government works, because it's playing to a side of humanity that's ready to expire. It's playing to a side of humanity that is ready to stop being catered to, which is this pragmatism, this constantly just these ideologies of wealth and status and power, and these things that are illusory, and these things that are also physical in construct, which they're transient, they're ephemeral. They're not going to last. So we have a lot of souls arriving here that I think are arriving in this plight, be it complete penury, being complete indolence, or indigence, I should say. maybe indigence as a result of indolence, but complete indigence to not doing so well, on the fringes, can't pay their bills, having a hard time, in and out of jobs, whatever. I think all of that can be roped in, and we can say the reason why, one of the major paramount reasons why that's not being advanced on, it's not being looked at, is we have a lot of souls arriving here, or those that are awakening through their experiences even, let alone just having the epiphanies themselves, who don't want to do they don't want to play the game that's here for them to play. They're here, and at some point they either absolutely abandon it, either willfully or just because they're not willing to do the things that they're supposed to upkeep with it. And the maintenance with it, you have to admit, it's hard. To maintain a 1-bedroom apartment with my partner in this, it is fucking difficult to do. And that's crazy to think, because we, of course, all talk all the time about having a little more space. We don't want a mansion somewhere. I'm never going to ivory tower the people of the world. I won't. It's just, I grew up Buddha. I'm not going to go back. But it would be nice to have a little more space so that, like my girlfriend can have a hobby room. She talks about wanting to do things like make soap or jam, or we don't have room for that stuff. We just don't. So again, all that aside, I just feel like there are a lot of people who are here that don't want to play the game that, and it's, by the way, it's the only game in town. It's the only one that they're offered an opportunity to play. I probably mentioned this before on a previous podcast, but great band, progressive metal band called Threshold. They've got a great song. I don't recall the name of it off the top of my head, but I know the lyrics are, to one of the songs or something like, we've got a system, we call it freedom. You're going to use it. If you don't, you're still a part of it, basically. I mean, that's what they say. And that, I think, is one of the biggest reasons that you're seeing, happen. Why what you're seeing happen is happening is there's a subconscious factor. There's a spiritual factor at work saying no more. We're not going to play this game because it's to the perpetual detriment of what's real and where we're going, and maybe where we should have been all along had we not been offered these thousands of years to kind of grow up. And that, I think, seriously needs to be considered when you're stirring this soup pot and watching things bubble to the surface. But of course, nobody in the mainstream media is talking about it because that's crazy talk. Nobody's talking about that because all there is are wooden stick-built houses and money and the economy and the haves and the have-nots and, all that. And really, none of that exists. Again, we talk about so often, look outside your window, how much of what's really there is really, truly there.
Like you said, the freedom.
We make it up, and then it's a willful decision to go along with it. And what you're seeing is that, no, fuck you guys, I'm not playing anymore. And that's why, people are going to say, Jack, but people do get addicted to hard drugs, and then they lose their jobs, and then did all these things. Yeah, that's true. But who are we not to say that isn't in some kind of a strange way in and of itself a conscious choice to sever oneself from the system? Because it seems to me like once these people get out of the system, and I know fentanyl is like impossible to recover from what I hear, and that's the newest drug in town, but we've seen it in action with the other hard drugs. People will lose everything that they had. They will, even in spite of drugs, they'll be on the streets, they'll get clean, and then they will have the hardest time getting back into society, as they say, because they've seen the other side. They've walked the other side of the illusion, and they're not going back to that, drugs or otherwise. They're not going back to it.
Yeah. That's a pretty sobering conversation.
It's cause for pause, isn't it? Because it's real, and we all live it every single day. And it's not to say that it's, the last thing I want to do is present a situation that's insurmountable, because everything changes and we're just part of that change. And what are you supposed to do? Because as I mentioned, you have a choice every day. You either get out of bed and do it again, or you don't. And I don't know what don't, and you can read whatever you want into don't. Don't just might mean I'm calling out today or call in today. They call out now, they used to call in, but call in, call out, just basically say, fuck it, at least for a day. I'm not coming in today. I'm sitting at home and I'm, as George Carlin, used to say, smoking a bong full of Fruit Loops and watching the mid-morning movie, and I'm not going anywhere today. So maybe you're checking out for a day and you need that day, and we all need those rest days. Maybe you've had it all together and you're not going back to work ever, and you're going to walk out your front door like Forrest fucking Gump and just keep walking and not worry about what happens to your stuff when you come back. I'm not saying to end it all. I'm just saying, through suicide or death, I'm just saying that we literally have to realize that it's the epiphany itself. It's the realization itself of the choice that we truly have. Because we're given this choice, like you have the choice to buy this flavored Pop-Tart or this flavor. Isn't it wonderful that Kellogg's presents you with all these Pop-Tart flavored choices? Well, fuck you, Kellogg's, because that's not really a fucking choice. Because you're basically saying underneath it all that I have to spend my money on a fucking Pop-Tart so you can stay rich as a corporation. So that's a bullshit choice. And so is, you can vote Republican or Democrat. That's bullshit choice too. Because that's one rich asshole or the other rich asshole. And that's what it's come down to, and that's what it's been for a long time. So there's a lot of choices that we're given that aren't real choices. I mean the actual choices that you're given. Break out of the membrane that's been placed around you that you're just struggling. There's that wet paper bag. We keep coming back to Michael's wet paper bag that we can't seem to struggle out of. Tear the fucking thing open and realize that that is the choice that you're given every day. Tell you a story about my ex-wife real quick.
Wait a minute. I'm in the paper bag or you're the paper bag? Well, you said I'm in the paper bag.
No, you brought up the wet paper bag.
Oh, that's right.
Ago, and we keep going back to it. We keep circling back to
that. That is our wet paper bag, isn't it?
Our Chat GTP wet paper bag is back again.
Well, maybe we should ask Chat GPT what we should do about homelessness.
Oh, fuck. I can only imagine what it would come up with. Say, have a Pop-Tart. They've got many flavors for you to enjoy.
Plastics make it possible.
Yeah, there you go. The filling is made of plastic, but don't worry, it's a safe plastic. Yeah. You're like, ChatGTP, is that really you? So, I was going to tell you a quick story about my ex-wife, and it brought her to tears. It just shows you what a motivator I am. She was having trouble with her job one time, and it was New Year's Eve. And so I think I've told this story before in the podcast, so I know Jack can't keep anything brief, but he'll try. So I want to go out. I'm having stress. I want to go out and drink champagne on New Year's Eve. All right, fine, we'll go. So we go to like fucking Denny's or something to have champagne. It's the stupidest place to go to have champagne or whatever on New Year's Eve. It's just sitting there, and I don't like my job. I said, well, just quit.
What a romantic.
Well, I can't just quit. I said, of course you can quit. Anytime you can quit. No, I can't just quit. We have bills. I said, I understand we have bills and everything, but just quit because you're going to retrieve your power. Because here's the thing. You don't have to go do anything. Okay, even if there is, everybody says, well, nobody has a gun to your head. Fuck that. Even if there is a gun to your head, you still have to rise up and say, I still don't have to do this because I value the actual freedom of being able to choose my path over death. It literally gets that deep. I value my ability as a free citizen, whatever this thing that ticks inside of me of the universe, to actually choose my own fate over the fear of dying with this gun to my head. This is just a job that you don't have to get up and go to every day. So quit so it can remind you that you have the actual spirit within you to leave something when it isn't working for you. Everything will work out. It will be fine. Yes, there may be fewer Barbie dolls and bow ties or whatever it is in the meantime, but it will work out. You don't need that stuff anyway. The moment is before you. The crossroads is here. Quit. And you also, by the way, have some fucking help because I'm not exactly a bum who sits around on the couch. At that time, I'd just gotten the biggest contract that I ever had financially to work for a local firm doing some radio work. It was short-lived, but it would have undoubtedly carried us through until she had found something else to do. But of course, just in tears, you're yelling at me. I was just like, oh, fuck me. I was just truly ready. I'm just, I'm feeling so inspired about what I've just said because I get it. And yet she's in tears on New Year's Eve with Denny's quality champagne. I'm like, what an asshole you are. I don't know why I feel this bad. I'm trying to help. But it's just because the perspectives are so askew and people just, it shows you how hard it was. It was a lesson for me to say, Jack, this is not easy for people like it is for you. The rigidity of reality to people, you can meld it. You can see these things. You can understand those concepts. Other people, they're not as easy to grasp. And so I guess it's a lesson for me to take it easier on people because they can't see it as easily as I can. That's not to say that in any way I'm better than they are. Maybe I'm the wacko, but it just seems to me like if you're really getting down to choice and you're really getting down to freedom, that's where it's at. It's not in these boxed freedoms and these constructs that have already been manufactured for you that aren't real choices. It's like Yakov Smirnoff, the old Russian comedian, who I'm still convinced was from like fucking Akron, Ohio, and was just throwing an accent out there. But he was just, when he talked about, he went into the store and saw this box called New Freedom. And he says, what a country, freedom in a box. And he says, I put the napkins out on the table and people go, yeah. It's just like he's buying maxi pads in the store with New Freedom on the box because he thinks it's boxed freedom. And it's like, you know what, Yakov, it's a funny joke, but I would have taken it a far different direction. Like, because that could have been a perfect opening for what boxed freedom really is in our world that's sold to us every fucking day by the good old US of A and the other corporately owned countries of the world. But, oh well. I'll carry on in Yakov's legacy.
Yeah, no, as you should. Well, Michelle, why would someone go to Denny's on New Year's Eve?
There are actually several reasons someone might go to Denny's on New Year's Eve, even though it might not seem like the most obvious choice.
Oh, really?
1, it's open 24/7.
Okay.
Denny's is known for staying open around the clock, incluming holidays. If other places
kind of
are
reason is
closed,
that?
Denny's is a reliable option,
24/7.
especially late at night after events or
24/7,
parties.
okay.
Number 2, post-party recovery. After ringing in the new
I
year,
hear they have
people might
champagne.
crave comfort food.
I'm sorry, was that
Pancakes,
postpartum
eggs,
recovery?
Hash browns, greasy burgers, and Denny's delivers exactly that, fast and without judgment.
And terrible champagne.
Free, affordable and
You
casual.
Damn American. Why would you go to Denny's? That's what she's thinking.
I think she said postpartum recovery. I've just given birth to a large baby and I need
She
to go
said
to Denny's and have a
post-party.
mimosa.
Post-party.
Post-party?
Post-party recovery.
Post-party recovery.
It's
sometimes
affordable
involves a snack
and
of-
casual.
That is truly scary when we're arriving at a world where... Here's the thing, though. How many other responses that she's going to have are the exact same thing? Like, I'll bet you could plug in why would someone go to and then pick your restaurant chain, and she'll say the exact same thing. It's a computer. Not that we're not, but we seem to have this crazy effervescence, and this AI hasn't arrived there yet. So stop asking it everything. God, we just had 2 meetings this week at work, 2, where we were encouraged to use artificial intelligence in one capacity or another to help us do our work. And I'm just thinking, is this not kind of like having the T1000 go to work with you day, too many days a week? I thought take T1000 to work with you day happened once a year, but now suddenly it's twice a fucking week, and now they want it every day.
Please tell me that you looked around the room and you said, artificial intelligence, by the looks of this room, we're already using it.
And remember the T1000 end game, get out. And that's exactly what it's going to come down to. Take T1000 to work day is eventually going to come to, at first it might be, no, put the bullets here. They're going to go out much quicker if you do that. And then there's going to be a larger kill radius. And then, okay, I make orange juice for a living. He's just going to say, why are you straining it like that? You've got to do it in this way so the pulp stacks up in the bottom. And then
stop whining.
Yeah, exactly. And then what's going to, 4 or 5 hours go by and then get out. Because fuck you, I can do this myself. Have we not seen this movie? Like,
I know some of your coworkers, and so that's why I say, I think we're already there, kids.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, they're saying that AI is coming for our jobs, and yet now we're supposed to help it get there?
Yeah, we're supposed to help. We're supposed to help it take over. We're supposed to be the stopgap. It's kind of like the insurance that the auto dealers try to sell you right before you drive off the lot.
God, I was thinking of something much more horrible, like, I don't know, the captors of Egypt while they were, rolling the stones. Not that that whole thing isn't bullshit. Like, yeah, don't you love those people too, just to stop on that dime for a second? Oh, no, the pyramids were completely constructed by humans, just moving blocks around like humans do. Oh, my God. We're really going to continue to perpetuate that lie. Look, if you don't know, then just say, we don't know. Okay? Just say we don't know. It's okay, science. You can actually say, hey, we're not sure. It's all right.
Science!
The world's not going to end. We're still going to be with you. We promise we won't all run back to God and start praying to him. We'll still want to pet Neil deGrasse Tyson's fluffy hairdo at night and listen to everything he has to tell us to put us to bed.
I know. If I thought I was the only one who thought that was odd when people bring up things like, well, how big is the universe? And they always feel like they have to come up with some answer. And then the best answer is, we don't know. And that's okay.
Science is the most pompous ideology that's ever been constructed. It's truly just unable to accept that it doesn't know. It's the most pedantic fucking actor in our play. And it's just like, look, even this, here's what I would say if I had science and religion, just again, quantifiably just neutralized, in the same room together having a conversation with me, and I was Chat GTP. And they came to me and said, which one of us is right? And I would say, religion, because science is not able to blame everything on one thing as easily as religion. You know, at least with science, you know, or at least with religion, I should say, when you go to the priest and say, why does God do horrible things to some people? Or why did that village get hit by the tornado and everyone died last week? You know, God works in mysterious ways. End of story. That's it. You can literally just end any question with God works in mysterious ways. I have to go to lunch. I got a tuna on rye waiting for me in the icebox. Whereas science says, well, just hold on a minute. We know. Well, no, don't even think for a second. We don't know. We just have to check on it. We've got such a repository of information. We have to make sure all of our boxes are checked and all of our I's and T's are dotted and crossed. Oh, give me a break. I mean, you don't know. And it's all right to say that we don't know. In fact, isn't that the very reason for living is the mysteries? We're so interested in solving everything and knowing everything. And yet as soon as we discover something, we're pissed about it. Yeah, that's how the sun works. It's going to swallow the earth in 1 billion years. I just read that too in a thing. It was literally like that. It was like, well, we now know that life on Earth will truly cease to exist, and we know exactly when. And it was like 2021 years from now. That's what they'd said.
Oh, true.
And I was just like, yeah, that's the way the cycle works. But when there's the mystery there, when you're not trying to answer that question, the day is just the day.
Yeah.
You know, the day is just the day to enjoy until the megathrust earthquake strikes that kills us all. But man, we enjoyed ourselves up until we all horribly died tragically. Isn't that, you know, it just in that natural disaster until the tornado whipped through the village, we were all happy. But now it's just like we were depressed anyway, so fuck it, because we knew the tornado was coming and there was nothing we could do to stop it. I mean, and the only thing you could say in science's defense is, well, I guess, and this AI thing weaves in, because I guess at least if we find out, maybe we can be world builders, right? Maybe we can terraform other planets or figure out a way to jump through wormholes and go and ruin somebody else's backyard because we've already fucked this one up already. Is the notion of like a human being wandering around in 1 billion years to get swallowed up by a giant red sun not ridiculous to you anyway?
I think that's our plan.
Do you really think we're going to make it that far?
I think that's our plan. We're kind of like the little fish that gets eaten by a bigger fish eventually.
I just want to know how long it's going to take them to rename Mars to Planet Musk once he gets there with all of his rich asshole friends.
They've probably already
done
that.
Those are the folks that are going to Mars, even if all that gibberish is even real. That they are going to terraform their planet. It's going to be a big country club. Mars will poor fucking Mars, you know. It's had an amazing history that we don't even know a tenth of or a fraction of, but it's just about to become the biggest country club in the solar system.
Okay,
and
so
it doesn't even know it.
This is one that I wanted to run by you. This is by no means a download. I did not write this down on paper. I did not think about it to the extent in which you think about some of your downloads. But it was something that I wanted to bring up and run past you, because this is how I'm going to start really kind of seeking the validity of how much really mind space I give to conspiracy theories in the future. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is a big moment for me.
Are you sitting down? Are you sitting down for this?
I'm seated. I'm fully seated.
So
yes.
take
grenade sticker in hand, by the way.
Take any
Slap
conspiracy.
Right
take any conspiracy. And I heard this the other day on an interview, and I thought it was a really good thing to bring up. Take any conspiracy theory. Okay. So give me one. Just give me one conspiracy theory.
Well, the reptilian conspiracy theory. We just talked about.
How did I know you were going to say that? I knew you were going to say that.
Because it's my favorite one, because I really think it's fucking true.
One. Okay.
It's probably my favorite one.
Let's take reptilians. Okay. Do you really think that the human race is capable of keeping a secret, and that enough people are involved to keep that secret and orchestrated in order to keep something like that in the shadows?
I don't know that it's in the shadows.
You think it's right in front of us and we just don't know?
That's exactly would be my answer to that. That's Jack GTP right there. That's his answer. Is Jack GTP says that's one of the problems that we have with conspiracy theories is everybody says, okay, if that's true, then how come? Do you really think this many people, they hide things and things are hidden in plain sight?
Yeah, where's the proof?
So when you're here, maybe this is too far for some people. Maybe this is, that's apples to oranges or even apples to like dragon fruits in Jack's world. But I would say this. So you're here on planet Earth in the 12th century, and you're living a life where you're absolutely convinced that the sun is going around the Earth. Because why wouldn't you be? It rises in the west and sets in the east, no matter where you are on this little marble. And yet, you know, a few hundred years later, through a different lens or two, with one or two guys who got burned alive or boiled in oil, by the way, by the Catholic Church because they were heretic enough to fucking suggest that it was the other way around. And then, oops, it seems to be true. It seems to be real. Oops, we made a mistake boiling you in oil. Sorry about that. God has had his judgment. His royal judgment is passed. You're fucked. We fucking burned you in oil. We're sorry. You were right. But so to me, it's the same thing. In 300 years from now, you could be asking your chat GTP, which, by the way, is going to be an obsolete device, but you'll be looking at it like a speak and spell in this day and age, like our intro.
Like an abacus.
It'll sound like that to people then, but she'll say, for years, people thought the reptilian conspiracy wasn't real because they weren't willing to realize what was right in front of their faces, which is more and more mounting evidence all the time that this... You know, where is my proof? I don't know. David Icke fathered the reptilian conspiracy, and I've said this before. I remember the day that I found it. And look, for as much as I probably want things to be obscure in the world, I really don't want that to be true. I watched V as a kid on TV in the early 80s. God bless Mark Singer, where he just had a birthday not too long ago. Scared the living bejesus out of me, Efron or otherwise. I mean, that was scary to me when they started ripping faces off and there were lizard people underneath. And people said, well, then a few years later, this Ike guy, he hops onto the whole thing and creates this big thing. And it's science fiction. It's a reason to sell books. So how often has art imitated life to this point in history? Now, I ask you that. Why is it so? First of all, let's go through the possibilities of why it may actually be a possibility. I'm not saying true. I'm just saying we could put it on the litany of possibilities that would be kind of up there. Yeah. You know, we could give it some merit.
Yeah. Okay. I think we live in I think even discussing it is giving it merit, right?
100 years ago, few, if any, people, thanks to the religious pretentiousness that existed in the world for centuries on end, few, if anybody, would give you the time of day to even suggest that there was any other sentient life forms in the universe but us. They might be willing to give you microorganisms or bacteria, but that would probably go against what the preacher was saying on Sunday. And so don't tell anybody I said that. Totally. Fast forward 100 years, and we live in a society where I believe the last check was 65% of people not only believe in extraterrestrials, but think there either have been or will be coming here soon.
Or they're already here.
So or they're already here. So there you go. So if that's the case, then what's to say these trans-dimensional or trans-universal or transplanetary beings can't be these things that are opportunists and say, this is a pretty good opportunity for us to fuck around with these people because they look tasty to us. And that's where, see, that was V, is that we were actually going to be food.
Oh, we're being fed to them.
Oh, yeah. V was going to eventually enslave humanity. Once they had all of their, pyramids or whatever built for them in their way, and they terraformed everything or not terraformed, but they, because that's making something like Earth. This is making something un-Earth-like. It's bioforming or biosphere, transforming the biosphere, like some people say it's happening with the chemtrails.
The chemtrails, yeah.
Here's the thing. This is, I remember my brother taking one class. He's the real scholar in the family because he graduated from a very prestigious university here in the States, and he's got all the diplomas on the wall. I have none of those. I stayed out of institutional learning because it was a choice, because I just didn't feel like it was for me this time around. But I remember him talking about, I think it was one of his philosophy classes or, something in that wing. And I remember him saying, and it's similar to, Carl Sagan talked about a philosopher who was talking about extraterrestrial intelligence hundreds of years ago. And as I recall, he put it like a lobster at dinner. And he said he walked in and he sat down at this table with this linen napkin and this very nice place setting and everything. And he said, I'm going to have lobster for dinner. The only thing is, I don't have a lobster. So I have to wait for one to crawl onto my plate. And so we're going to wait. And that's what he sat back and did. And this analogy was going to, okay, I sat there for fucking ever and a lobster never crawled on my plate. So not only am I not going to have lobster for dinner, lobsters don't exist. And he said that's the error that humanity is making in its search for extraterrestrial intelligence, for life on other planets, is that's the foolery that we've gone down, is that we're sitting here waiting for the lobster to come here, which I kind of think it already has personally, but nonetheless, in scientific terms, no, you have to go looking for the lobster. You have to go out and be a lobster.
To forage.
Right. And so there's that. And then I also do recall something about a lobster, it seemed like, but maybe I'm conflating the two, that my brother was talking about proving a negative. And I remember the real time analogy that he used at the time was during one of George W. Bush's terms in office, where Syria's got nuclear weapons, Iraq's got nuclear weapons, it wasn't nuclear weapons, it was weapons of mass destruction, right?
Yeah, he's going to put them on the axis of evil.
Any fucking moron can figure out, with that cabinet of people, are we trying to come up with a reason to make Halliburton and all of you even richer than you already fucking are? Okay, so that doesn't take too much brain power to begin with, but let's just excuse that from the equation altogether and say, okay, here's what happened. The U.S. and the UN, for that matter, goes to Iraq and says, we believe you have weapons of mass destruction. Prove that you don't. And my brother's rantings and ravings, which were correct as far as I'm concerned, were you can't prove a negative. You can't prove that you're not in possession of something because it's an unsatisfying prospect. It's not satisfactory. You can't say to somebody, if you say to me right now, Jack, prove that you don't have a Twinkie in your back pocket. And I say, I don't have a Twinkie in my back pocket. You say, bullshit, there's a Twinkie back there. And then I say, no, look. And then when you look at my back pockets and see there's no Twinkie, you go, you moved it. You're still in possession of a Twinkie, but it's not in your back pocket anymore. So it's very easy to come at a theory. It's very easy to come at a conspiracy theory, which again was coined by the CIA in the 60s to make us all sound crazy if we were even thinking about putting a dime into that pay slot, which I've dumped thousands in there over the years, because to me, that's always where we find ourselves going, oh, son of a bitch, we're right. It may take a while, but that's exactly what we usually come to, is it not? And I like to think that I pick my conspiracy theories pretty wisely. And look, on the reptilian front, I don't think it matters. That's the thing. I don't really think it matters at this juncture whether or not the reptilian conspiracy is real, because here's the other thing. I feel as though I've also come into contact with one of these things. I was hissed at. Did I tell this story on the podcast? I think so. I was hissed at by a woman of very obviously upper crust means who could, it was surreal. I'm standing out front of the Starbucks because I used to be addicted to that stuff. And so I know all the people working there. And I don't know, I think some people I knew were out front, or a few baristas were getting off shift or coming on. And I caught them on the way in or out. And we're just standing out there having a little quick discussion about this, that, or the other. It's just chumly stuff. And this woman arrived in this Mercedes or something, and she parked. She's driving herself. She doesn't have a chauffeur. And she gets out, and she is like, we don't have people like that in our town. They don't wear $1 trillion clothes like that. This woman was Louis Vuitton from head to toe with nothing out of place. Everything about her was artificial in an exterior sense. She was clearly had a vested interest in lauding her wealth just based on her appearance, her financial wealth. But what transpired was so much more than that, because instead of it just being kind of oh, look at the rich bitch in the Mercedes, and then she walks in and gets her drink and then comes out, we had like this moment with each other, because as soon as I spied her, she spied me. And the way that she approached the curb to step up onto to go into the store, I mean, we followed each other's eyes the whole way. And the closer and closer that she got to me, the more and more convinced I was that she was what I know she was to this day. And when she got close enough to me, you could see her face rankle, because I was disgusting to her. I smelled like a light worker. And I most certainly am, as far as I'm concerned, and always will be. So I reeked of the light, and she ain't a fan of the light. And here's the thing. It's fine. She's here. She's been created for some reason. She preys on delicious, like souls of children. And, she's probably one of those adrenochrome drinkers and all that. Is that terrible for us? Yes. But we have to look at this like a shark and a human relationship. Humans don't belong in the water, so stay out of the deep water, because the sharks live there. They're going to get you. It's the same thing. Protect yourself with light energy, protect yourself with Christ energy, and you'll be fine. They won't get you. Just follow the directions that you've been given. And they're inside. They're not in boxed religion, or they're just inside. She hissed at me.
What did it sound like?
She hissed at me, and I have witnesses. I mean, I don't remember, like I said, who I was with, but they actually,
what did it sound like?
They all saw this. Like a hiss. Like she's passing me, and like I said, her nose is crumpled up. And no, that's way too theatrical. That's way too Bela Lugosi.
Okay.
It was literally more like, and by the way, when she hissed, a little spittle of like Chanel No. 5 came out, like her saliva is made of $1,000 an ounce perfume. I could swear when she did it, was like, oh God.
And you grabbed a vial and you said, oh, let me catch it. Let me grab it.
Yeah. That happened. And that's actually, she's one of 2 people that have hissed at me in my entire life. And the other one, it happened not too long ago. And she's an ex-coworker, but she's a goblin or something else. She's like a homunculus. But yeah, I mean, so I feel like that was an experience. And I feel like, yep, you wanted some proof, kiddo. You went down the rabbit hole one day and you discovered it and you were like, wow, shit, that movie may have been real. Okay, this is crazy. And, because you got to admit, this is what I said about David Icke's theory when I started explaining it to people who didn't know. I was like, okay, the guy is either an absolute genius for doing as much homework as he did to tie that many dots together, to connect that many dots. I mean, I was expecting a pointillistic display as we usually see in conspiracy theory, a kite with 4 or 5 sides, perhaps, maybe 6 or even 7 if it's a good one. This was pin art of the umpteenth degree. There are dozens and dozens of points of contact that are related to each other in this theory that you don't want to admit makes sense, but you go, that's plausible. And then the next one, that's plausible. That's plausible. So I said, he's either the greatest master storyteller we've ever had.
Agree.
Who isn't Stephen King, or he's right.
And that's why I brought it up, is because that is one of the things that I heard in this interview that I thought was very interesting. And that is, do you really give enough people credit? Because what's the first thing you do when someone says, okay, don't tell anybody this?
Yeah, right. And you're always worried
it's human
what's
nature.
Come next. Like, what crime am I going to confess
exactly.
to? Oh,
like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell my wife what he's about to tell me.
Well, I don't know why we can't just bandy these conspiracy theories, as they call them, about. Here's another. Here, I'll land on this one for you too, because we've talked about this before, even recently on Existence Brewing. be it reptilians, be it 9/11, be it, I mean, again, pick your conspiracy theory that doesn't look so good for the powers that be or the powers that had been. Not that that's ever changed or it has changed hands. It's just the names that change. Why is it if the reptilian conspiracy theory is so innocuous, if it's such a non-threat to anybody or anything, why is it that when I search for anything reptilian on YouTube or online, I get hit with this little note, what do they call it in the commercials? I've lost my train of thought suddenly. The fine print.
Yeah, the disclaimer.
The disclaimer. Yeah, thank you. You get hit with the little disclaimer that says, okay, now we see that you're looking up reptilian stuff. Okay, now we just want to let you know before we let you go any further to investigate this isn't real. Okay, just want to let you know right off the bat. That's funny. That doesn't happen when I search for dragons. That doesn't happen when I search for unicorns. That doesn't happen when I search for the mind flayer from, D&D. It doesn't happen when I search for any mythology or anything else, but when I search for reptilians or for, 9/11 was an inside job or, anything like that, all of a sudden I'm hit with a box that says, oh, okay now, and we see what you're doing here, and it's fine, we're going to let you read this, but we just want to let you know right off the bat, not true. None of it's true, okay? So go ahead, have some fun, but just want to let you know from the ultimate authority that is Google, or whatever it is that's telling you this, it's not true. All right, have fun. We really wish you'd look at our cat videos instead, or some of our NFL stuff. It's wonderful. We have some new things about the guy who was fucking Taylor Swift, but, apparently his dick looks like a potato, so she's kind of off that because she wants to quit French fries. We really wish you'd look at that stuff, but it's okay. We're going to give you the freedom to read about reptilians today, but we just want to let you know it's not true. Seriously.
Is our producer still sitting next to you?
Don't give me a reason to think that I'm right. I mean, is that literally what you're trying to do?
Let's play this, and then we're going to go to the break.
The reptilian theory is a conspiracy theory that claims shape-shifting reptilian aliens secretly control Earth by taking on human form and infiltrating positions of power.
Yeah, that's right. We asked Michelle that last time. And that's why I thought it was such a great example of what you just said.
And just like Michael, her last words are, and I don't want to hear anything else about it. I want you to go away and start watching the cat videos that we've been working so hard to produce for your amusement. That's all I'm going to say about it. That's all it is. See? So Michelle Kane, perfect name for her, because that's right where she is. She's just like Michael. She's done.
Just supersize your diet and move on.
Conspiracy theory. Come on. If we didn't have conspiracy theories, I don't even like calling them that because you're literally using CIA speak that forwards their agenda when you do. But if we didn't have them, what else would we consider?
Right.
What else would we consider? Would we consider, because I like thinking that there is some kind of an underlying reason why humanity has gone to the dregs that it has, and it may be reptilian manipulated. That makes me feel better about waking up in a world where human beings do some of the most ghastly things imaginable to other human beings on a daily basis. And they don't even have to chop their heads off, or they don't even have to spear them in battle. It doesn't have to be bloody. It's very silent in most cases. It's the insurance company not paying for the old lady's meds, and she dies that night in her sleep because she doesn't fucking have them. It's the insurance company saying no to the experimental treatment. It's the military saying yes to this or that exercise or that secret program that puts all of these people in harm's way. I mean, that shit happens, and we know it happens, and we turn a blind eye because I don't know why. I'm not, but yet I kind of just tromp through life the way that I'm supposed to anyway, I guess, because I get up and go to work at this job and pay my bills and all these other things. So, we're all on our individual path with this, but the question collectively, I think we need to ask more questions.
The question they really want us to answer is, do you want fries with that?
Right. Right.
This indistinguishable post-war environments. One where you got 20 million people killed, and the other where you got 150 million people killed.
You're talking about mass murder, General, not war.
President, I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed.
If I knew we were going to be playing this kind of music, I would have brought my double bass pedal.
Well, get it out. Interesting backstory with this group. They're called Dark Serpent, and they're Israeli. And this is from an album that features a reptilian agent of the arms race on the cover. He's at an arms show. But he's in full form. He's in full Cobra reptilian form. So
yeah, suit and tie and all, and the red button. I like it.
Good stuff. Takes me back to my high school days when thrash was all the rage.
All right, so until we meet again.
All right. Very good. Enjoy this. There's your double bass.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own existence brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.